Hello and welcome to another episode of the Sports Art Podcast, where we analyze and give our expert opinion on the sporting activities in the week gone by. A week that's seen Tiger Woods in a tragic car accident. We hope for him to have a speedy recovery. Basketball being played in a few games at the Europa League. Wales winning the Triple Crown, which England pretty much gifted to them with their stupid penalties, and COVID affecting yet more sports. And from that, we need to talk about France rugby team. 10 players and coaches all contracting COVID when I think they're supposed to be isolating as a group during this COVID period or during this Six Nations period. So what are they partying all together? Are they partying with other people? Are they partying outside? Is it just one person bringing the COVID in? What has been happening at the France rugby camp for Six Nations? And for that, we'll go to our resident rugby expert, Mitchell. What do you think's been happening there?
I couldn't even speculate on it, but I think what's happened was their celebrations after. Oh, who was their second? Who did they play last week? Was it whoever they played last week? You've seen the celebrations in the changing rooms, and we've seen it in football. They're supposed to be socially distanced, they're not meant to be getting all that close to each other afterwards. I think that's where it spawned from. All the outbreaks have spawned from. How it's got in, it's probably just something as simple as one of them's gone out to a shop and grabbed it.
But do you think then the game should have been postponed because the games at the start of the Scottish Premier League when Celtic, a few Celtic players and Aberdeen players got it, they were all postponed as well, which I think was wrong as well. I think those games should either they should have their young youth team come and play those games, or they should be null and void, and the opposing team should get the win. So in my opinion, I think Scotland should have got that victory.
To be fair, France's third team could have went out and beat Scotland. That's sort of the level that France. France's third team gave England a game.
Was it England they beat last week?
Ireland.
No played England yet.
I'm with Martin. Like you look at it and like, okay, the squad's isolating. The simple thing would have been like obviously still would have been all negative tests, all those are positive. Leave them out. You've got plenty of players in the top 14, the French Rugby League, for those who don't understand, who they could have brought in to play.
Exactly. I think postponing games is just like an excuse for, I don't know, it's just an excuse really, because I think I was reading somewhere that it could be a possibility that Scotland doesn't have 10 players when the game is scheduled for. So are we going to lose a game that we could have potentially won with with France not having some of the main players?
That's a problem for the SRU to sort out, because we have this weird agreement. We obviously have the agreement in place because the Six Nations takes place in the middle of the season. So it's like, if they can sort it out, great. If not, the final game might decide something. But at the rate Wales are going, it could literally just be replacement. And if that's the case, I don't see the point of the game being played a week after everyone else is already finished.
I think it's the correct decision.
What, postponing the game?
Postponing the game.
Yeah, and you're just biased though, because that's what happened with the Celtics, because their games got postponed. So you're happy because they were able to play. No, it's not though.
It's different sport.
No, it's the same principle, because they had COVID outbreak as well, and so did France. Celtic should have put a rubbish team out against other teams and played those games when they were scheduled for, and so should have France. And if they weren't playing those games, then they should have forfeited the games and let the other team win. So Scotland should have got the victory, just like the other teams that were scheduled to play against.
Celtic did play weakened teams after the Dubai trip, so that experiment could go ahead. But imagine if Scotland won the Six Nations this year, Wales trip up in one of the next two games, one of them being France. France beats Wales, and then Scotland got awarded the victory over France and won the Six Nations.
And what's wrong with that, James? What's wrong with that?
No, it would be a tainted Six Nations title because you didn't win one of the biggest games. The history books might have a Scottish victory, but it wouldn't be a moral victory. If you're going to win the Six Nations, win it on the park. Don't win it because of postponed or because of games getting cancelled and so on. Win the game on the park. And
So
that's
the
So
game
the
has been
likelihood
cancelled.
of
Don't-
Scotland
don't-
winning that
don't
game
win.
on the park is
Don't win
Not
because
high.
games have been cancelled.
the
No,
likelihood of Scotland
That sounds like
winning away to
an
France.
interesting.
The
Well, you can
likelihood
see
of
it's
Scotland
good to
winning
see.
away to France is quite low. Scotland are playing well, but France is a good team. But win on the park, it's a weakened team France would be fielding. And if you can't win that, you don't deserve to win the Six Nations. So go and play the
Scotland
game
done that.
rather than postpone.
Scotland, well, the
Or
two
not,
games that
keep
Scotland's
postponed.
had, they've been pretty good games, and I think they gave Wales the run for their money as well. Just unlucky at the end with a few mistakes, but I reckon Scotland has a team that could have beaten the main strong France team.
Yeah, so play them. Postpone the game and play them and prove that you can win.
That's fine if they can find a date that we can have all their players playing. Because
Exactly.
if they
'Cause obviously if you're
change
losing
it
our
to a
players, then
date
it's
that
unfair.
doesn't suit our players, then we then go into a game with a weakened team, even though we haven't actually done anything wrong.
I'm sure you can find a date somewhere.
The problem is you look at the Scotland players. Okay, you look at the big names: Russell, Hogg, Johnny Gray. Okay, yeah, two of them play for Exeter, one plays for Racing 93. Easy enough to replace. But you look at your Jacko van der Vault, your Duan van der Merwe, Hamish Watsons, Grant Gilchrist, Richie Gray.
I think you're just making people up.
You would. They're all from either Glasgow or Edinburgh, and okay, let's be honest, they're both doing pretty crap right now. But they're both still in.
No idea.
It's the fact that you're saying it so confidently. They just look at like. They're both doing crap now. But can you imagine? But the impact that's going to have on the Scottish clubs if they have to sacrifice for another game week, because they've already lost most of the clubs lost them this week. A couple of them got back, but obviously with travel and training, a couple that I don't think Johnny Gray didn't play for Exeter, and I don't think Hogg did either. And it's like, well, there's two players missing out in big games. Imagine if that's half a squad for the likes of Edinburgh and Glasgow.
But if Scotland were awarded the victory because France were the team that had to pull out and then went on to win the Six Nations, would it have an asterisk beside it, Bruce?
Possibly, but that seems to be the way we're running things at the moment and the way we're claiming victory. So if it's good enough for one hand, it's good enough for the other, Mr. Bundy.
Well, a lot of times you can fit the game in somewhere. Just play the game, and if Scotland win, they win potentially win the Six Nations. Just do it.
That's fine in principle. The problem is if another team does the same thing, or if France another 2 or 3 players catch it later on with France. I think postponing the game was wrong. I don't think you should postpone the game. I think you've got to let the most senior players that you've got available play the game as arranged. Because as soon as one team catches COVID and can't play, might happen to another team later on. It might happen to the same team again. You might be 4 or 5 weeks after the Six Nations is supposed to finish and still playing Six Nations games.
Well, it depends on how many go out partying, Martin. And trust me, I know about partying.
Your club knows, not you, Bruce.
Aye, that was a.
I've got another option. Just null and void the Six Nations.
What? No. I'm not even going to get into it because I will mention Celtic. I really do not want to mention Celtic in this podcast.
Just put yourself on mute. Stop
that is
talking.
just, it's a really horizontal attitude to have to this.
Exactly.
I thought I would just go left field. Just throw another option out there. Just we've got the Six Nations. The options are play the game if France had a weakened team. That didn't happen. That's probably the best option. Second one is postpone. And I say postpone is better than awarding Scotland the victory.
I don't think it is, because technically Scotland hasn't done anything wrong, and I don't think they should get asterisk next to the name as well if they go ahead and win the full league. because they haven't done anything wrong. They were there. Their players were ready to play. It just so happened that France couldn't provide a team that was fit to play.
Well, it's happened to the Scotland national team as well, though, where the opposition contracted COVID and then the opposition had to find another 20 players to take up there. Who were playing?
You still talking about rugby?
No, football.
Yeah, football.
Right.
Football.
I know what you're talking about.
I can't remember who we were playing.
Serbia?
But we played a weekend team and we ended up still struggling.
Czech Republic.
Czech Republic. That was it.
Celtic did it with Slavia Prague and we lost 4-1.
You also done it with Hibs.
That's just Celtic though.
That's just Celtic summed up in the Celtic season summed up this season, to be fair.
No, our former manager's season summed up.
I think that we're trying to relate this back to football and Celtic and Rangers, blah blah. I think the closest comparison we have would be the back end of last year and the Autumn Nations Cup.
Mm-hmm.
You had Fiji, you had a couple of Fiji's players who were meant to be playing for the Barbarians, which are like an all-star team almost, sort of.
Yeah. And
they went out stupidly and had a party, had a meal. Some of them
was Patterson there.
Yeah.
I don't condone parties whatsoever. Terrible.
Only your club does.
Not even national ones.
No parties. Bad.
But like you look at that in Fiji, because of that, pretty sure it was Fiji. They had because they had I think it was like 4 or 5 players. They had to pull out entirely from it, and every team got awarded the points because they couldn't bring in other players.
So Mitchell, what you're saying is there's been precedent.
There's been set by World Rugby already, and for European. I know somehow Fiji aren't European, but they got into the Autumn Nations Cup.
I'm quite glad you filled us in on that because I did not have a clue on what happened during the Autumn Nations Cup.
You really have to keep up with these things, Bruce.
I know.
Well, it happened 6 months ago.
I think what it is, Martin, is I too don't have much of an interest unless Scotland's playing in the old egg chasing.
So what did the Scotland manager say about the game getting cancelled?
I've not seen Townsend make any comments. I think he was glad when it got announced at the start of the week that it was going ahead. But then I think he came out and said he's disappointed that the games had to be cancelled. And I'm sure it was not sure who it was, but other sources were talking about Scotland might struggle with the new team because of the agreement they have with the Scottish teams, which is ironic.
Surely if Scotland had a chance of winning the Six Nations, you'd get the teams and the players to agree to play in one off game.
You'd hope so, but I don't know what the full situation is, especially with the Pro 14 where the Pro 14 is now, and it's all meant to be broken up. So like when they play, they obviously have like the week off, and they're not meant to play for I think they do play for the club, but they're meant to have a break from international rugby. So it's going to be a case of you're going to have them play the final game, have a week where they go back to their club, train, possibly playing, possibly get injured. Yes, they can get injured in any game. Possibly play for their club, then have to leave their club again to go link up for the Scotland camp. And I think when you link it to international football, everyone's a bit dubious about it because you've got all these players from different clubs coming together, mingling, then going back out. It's just promoting the possible spread. In my opinion, that's why I think it should have just been canned. Give Scotland a win, not even a bonus point win, just a win.
What happens if Scotland lost the Six Nations by a bonus point?
Then it go down to Then you'd go look at the Wales. You probably could argue the Wales game. We should have won that. We had chances to.
So Scotland would have been denied a chance to win the Six Nations because of that ruling.
That's one way to argue with it, but no matter which way you go, you're going to upset someone. You just need to go.
Or we could play the game and lose the game, and then we wouldn't win anyway. It's fine.
And still lose by a bonus point because we didn't win. So we didn't lose with a bonus point. Yes, you can
Aye.
have a winning bonus point and a losing bonus point. Just to explain
All
to
I'm
Martin.
saying is that the only way to avoid argument is null and void the season.
Aye. I
Aye,
think
but
that's the way to go. I think you keep the places that they are sitting in just now, distribute the money, and give European places. Oh, sorry, we're talking about rugby again.
Right, so just quickly then, James, do you think Scotland been awarded the victory?
No. Won it on the
Just
field.
covered that.
Right, Mitchell,
I think they should have.
Martin,
Yes.
and Bruce.
And as we all know, I've got to go the opposite from James, so yes.
Okay, so I think yes as well, and it is what it is.
And it's nice to see everybody right is wrong.
Unfortunately, that won't be happening. So, guess yeah.
I'm on the side of authorities again. How surprising. But another sporting event this week was the Europa League, where we've got some Scottish success with a team from Glasgow getting through to the last 16.
Not the team you support.
No, not the team I support. And then 3 English clubs making it to the last 16. Bruce, as a fan of that other team in Glasgow, how is your party this weekend?
Yeah, no, life's great. And it's good to see us talking about Europe in this podcast, something that one of the teams you support and your political views aren't so fond of. So it's nice to have it included in the podcast this week. But yeah, no, do you know, it was a great game at home to win 5-2 against Antwerp after the kind of dodgy game away. We came away with a win when we were away in Antwerp, but it was a bit kind of hit and go at points. And I thought it was quite good. The teams that have gotten through, we've got some of the supporters in the group with us this evening, so I thought we would kind of touch base and see what we think of our teams' draws coming up. So, James, I thought I would start with you, since the other team you support has actually had some success in Europe, and they've got Dynamo Zagreb.
We should win.
Your thoughts?
We should win.
Is
Simple as.
Glorious Jose that we know you're very fond of?
We should win. That's all I have to say. It's a good draw.
Yep. No, I thought the very same, and we'll go around later and work out who everybody thinks is going to win. But no, I think it's going to be a Hotspur win. Martin, your guys have got AC Milan.
Yes. Always. I think that's probably one of the better ties in the round, I would think. I think both of the teams are possible winners. I'm going to go with... I think that'll go into the second leg. It'll still be tight going in the last 10 minutes of the game. I'll go Man United for the sake of it, but I think AC Milan will be a good shout as well.
Yeah. And obviously Chelsea, Mitchell and Shahan weren't in it. But your rivals...
That's why.
I was just about to say, I'm pretty sure Chelsea's still in Champions League.
I know. No, wait. But your rivals Arsenal, do have a draw. So what do you think about the Arsenal Olympiacos game?
I mean, if Arsenal play the way they did during the week there, I think they would win it against Everton.
It's the same draw again. Like, I think it's just so funny how they've drawn Olympiacos 2 years in a row.
Yeah.
Like, I think Arsenal playing their kids like they have, like Saka and that, I think they should win this time round. I think they should go through. But it's all very hit and miss. You never know what Arsenal's going to turn up.
Yeah.
And obviously, I think Rangers are going to win because Rangers are the best thing since sliced bread and are just brilliant. However, Slavia Prague did put Leicester out 2-0. So it's going to be a difficult draw. Leicester are a bit of a hit and miss team though. But
they didn't play their strongest team either.
No.
Leicester were a bit weak.
So I'm going to go for a Rangers win, but you never know day on the day, really.
Go through.
I mean, are Rangers ever going to get all the way to the final again? and make a mockery of Scottish football like they did the last time.
If they get 4 penalties in each tie, then possibly.
Well, it's nice to see they're taking that from domestic football into European football. I don't know how that works with the refereeing system, but it's nice that they're.
I don't know, but it's just.
I think it's one of those things that all depends on the draw at the end of the day, isn't it? That's you either get the luck of the draw, or you don't get the luck of the draw, and then after that is what you put on the park. So we'll just have to see what happens going forward. But
that was an answer of cliches.
Do you think that they'll get? How far do you think Rangers will go?
Here comes a biased answer. Final, they're going to win it.
Do you think they'll? You think they'll climb quite high on this vertical ladder of European success?
We're all about the vertical today, aren't we? Vertical.
Well, or do you think they'll just be horizontal and stay at the same place that they've been at for the last 2 years?
I think we could. I think we could at least get to the semis. I'd like to see us in the final. Semis would be nice.
The last time when you went to the final, you just wrecked the city.
COVID restrictions may have something good for once.
And we did a very good job of it.
There you go. We have a Rangers fan on record saying that they did a very good job of smashing Manchester up to pieces. What a change in tables.
That is an extremely vertical and diagonal.
Some of the other ties in the Europa League. Ajax against Young Boys.
Martin.
James, we'll go to you for your thoughts on that one.
I'm going to say
Ajax. And Dynamo Kiev, Villarreal, we'll keep it in the same pattern, Martin.
Villarreal for me.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. And AS Roma, Shakhtar Donetsk. Shahan.
I literally have no idea, no interest in either of those teams. So Roma.
Can I pick up and I'm a Roma fan?
Aye. Mitchell kind of likes Roma.
I'm actually a Roma fan.
On the diagonal line of the teams that he supports.
Is this
pick a country I've got to.
To be fair, I would say Roma as well. Then,
when you're visiting Italy, that you're visiting all the time to go and see the Roma games.
When have I ever been to Italy?
Well, I know.
Exactly.
that
was one of my moments there, Mitchell.
Mitchell, do you think Roma are going to beat Shakhtar?
I think they will beat Shakhtar, yeah.
And then Shakhtar, just in case you had even a bigger clue about this one, Granada and Mold.
Granada? Mold. We're going with Mold.
I would say Mold.
I'd say Granada.
To be fair, Hibs beat Mold 2-3 years ago. While Solskjaer was still managing there, that was the season that Solskjaer left Mold to go to
United.
Manchester. Mold aren't a great outfit, but to be fair, I do think the two worst teams got drawn together. I think a lot of teams were sort of wanting either up Granada or
I think
but
you have
what do you think of that, Mitchell?
You have to.
Who do you think the worst two teams in that is?
I would say Molde, and I'd probably go Young Boys actually. I think Young Boys are they're Swiss. They're decent, but I don't think. I think Granada, especially when you look at how well they've done in La Liga, they're a dangerous threat going forward.
I think there's a lot of good games in it though. I think through the games, I mean the Kiev Villarreal game should be a good game, and all the games that the British teams are involved in will be good games. I still think the Man U AC Milan game will be the one I'll watch.
I think that will be a very, very exciting game.
It will be another really
what do you think? What do you think the score will be in that?
Very low. What? In each of the or just the first leg?
Who's going to score the goals for the teams though? For AC or Man U?
These are very leading questions.
I know. For Milan, then Ibra, Big Ibrahimovic.
I think you're onto a jackpot there with that, Shahad.
I mean, that's the only Milan player I remember or know. So.
Coming back to United.
United. I think Bruno Fernandes will be magical. I think he will be. I think
Like
he'll
he
be
was
the
against Chelsea tonight.
I mean, he struggles against the big six. He struggles against the better teams, but Milan isn't on the level of Chelsea. So
I'm going to show a sign of solidarity, and I'm going to say Rangers should win their game. Rangers should go through. Rangers.
Oh,
Yeah.
are you
Even though
the Scottish
James-
coefficient vote?
James, there is no should, it's will.
even though Slavia Praha beat Leicester, and
as we've already
Leicester being a
clarified-
better team as well.
Yeah, but
Leicester were- Leicester
Brendan
were nowhere
Rodgers,
near-
he's not a proven manager. Anyone can beat them. So
Of course he's not.
anyone
Of course
can
he's
beat
not.
the Rat.
Of course he's not. He was at the worst club ever.
Right, so
Yeah,
So
Liverpool.
see,
But
last question. Last question for everyone.
What, Celtic, wasn't it? The worst club ever.
oh no,
Ma-
Swansea. I'm sorry.
My last question for everyone. Will the 4 UK teams go through to the next round? James,
Yes.
Mitchell,
Yes.
Martin.
Yes. Yes.
Barely.
Aye.
Victor United.
Aye. I'm expecting the Huns and United to go out.
No. No. And
What?
I say with regret, but I think Rangers won't make it through. I do say with regret, because I do want a Scottish team to go through, but I don't think they will. And I do say with
Yeah.
regret.
Scottish football.
Tell you what, Rangers go through. When all this COVID malarkey is off, you're buying me a drink. Sorted.
If Rangers go through, I'll buy everybody a drink.
That's you heard it here, boys.
Fair enough. And it's
Please tell me you
recorded.
recorded
Awesome.
this, James.
It is recorded.
Thank
But,
God.
going on to the third topic, we've just been speaking about Ajax v Young Boys. So now on to youth development.
What a segue.
These links are brilliant. You've been sitting thinking about this for days.
I'm glad you went Ajax and Young Boys and didn't mention Celtic or anything like that.
Whoa.
Oh, oh,
I said nothing.
So Martin,
yes.
youth development in sports, obviously very important for wanting better football players. Scotland have had trouble producing football players in recent years, but we seem to be getting better. What do Scottish football, sports in general, have to do to improve youth development?
Just before Martin answers this, I'm really looking forward again to listening to Martin's expert opinion. It thrills me every week. Martin, go for it. I'm all ears.
You're welcome, Bruce. I'm just glad I can turn you on.
Someone had to.
Can you keep your hands up where I can see them, please?
Apart from the beer.
Right. Well, youth development is obviously one of the most important parts of sport to bring on the next generation, and nationally it's extremely difficult to do because everybody is trying to bring through a player for themselves and not for the country. You look at what Scotland have brought through in the past in football in terms. Who was the last world-class player Scotland have brought through?
Ollie
Anybody?
McBurney.
Yeah.
£22 million worth.
He was a waste of money. Anybody else, like actual proper player who could be considered one of the best players? What, Dalglish?
In the world.
Kieran Tierney, left back.
Actually, yeah, Tierney's actually not a bad shout.
I was going to say, I would say either KT or Andy Robertson.
So Andy Robertson's a good one, but Andy Robertson got dropped from Celtic at 14 and had to go start again at Queen's Park, and then Dundee United, and then on to Hull and make his way back up. And he's considered, well, he's Scotland captain just now. So it's figuring out what club teams are doing wrong. They're letting go of players, and then the players that are let go end up making it further than the team that has let them go. The first thing that I think the issue is football for kids has turned middle class, it's expensive. I mean, Mitchell, your brother plays football at youth club level.
Yeah.
I mean, how much do I pay the football boots for him?
With his taste, he's going for like the 200 pair boots. He's going for like your glitch, your proper fancy boots.
Martin,
So yes.
remember that's the ones that he comes and shows off at fives.
Yeah, so ones that Gavin usually kicks him in.
The one, that's the one. That's them.
the one that you see the back of as he runs past you.
Sometimes I don't even see the back of it. I'm that close. I'm that slow. Do you know what I mean? I'm just like.
So it's, the argument for me is football for kids becoming middle class? I mean, I've got two kids that play for boys club football. I'm £30 a month for one of them and £20 a month for the other one. You're paying for 3G pitches. You're paying for top of the range strips, referees, and all that. It's not a cheap sport anymore like it was when I was. What's everybody else's feeling on football being more expensive for kids now than it used to be?
I would tend to agree with you, Martin, but my thoughts are, so if you're getting all that top of the range, and again, obviously my children aren't old enough to be thinking about playing football, but so I don't have any of the first-hand experience you do, but if you're paying for all those top of the range, quality things, then you would expect an associated cost to come with that. However, how do you make something like that affordable? Do you know?
Well,
and I would tend to agree that it is becoming expensive, but
the problem is that in other countries there's areas that are given for free. There's grass pitches, there's astroturf that's paid for by governments to allow kids to play football for free, and we're having to pay through the nose for it, and that's at a government level, no, and an SFA level.
No,
also there's things. I went through coaching badges and everything. Obviously, I was a first aider with St Andrew's Cross. I've also been coaching with a guy who was in the police and a secretary of the team who was a nurse. They all had to do another first aid course, myself included, because St Andrew's Cross wasn't good enough. Being policemen and doing the first aid stuff there wasn't good enough. And being a nurse wasn't good enough. We had to do a 2-day course for a company called Sticky Plaster. And that was good enough for the SFA. I mean, that's just lining somebody else's pockets, surely, for the sake of it.
Well, who's the owner of Sticky Plaster's friends with? That's the question.
Aye,
Bob. I blame Bob.
I blame Bob. Now, youth football has got increasingly better since I don't know about yourselves. When I was young, 5, 6, and playing for a football team, I was still playing 11-a-sides. Every now and then you might get a 7-a-side game, but there was 22 laddies on a pitch chasing one football, and usually sort of crowded around it, and only 2 or 3 players actually getting a touch of it. They've changed it now to a system of...
That sounds like me playing fives.
They've changed it now to a system of, on one full-size football pitch, there's 16 pitches with 32 players and 16 footballs. So you've got, each individual pitch has got 2 goals that are smaller than hockey goals and no goalies. So they are going in the right direction. But do we think that it's actually gone far enough? Are we falling behind the Belgiums and the other countries of the world that are taking it by the scruff of the neck and going forward with youth development?
I think that's an oversimplified answer. But the culture is a big part of it. And here, just looking at the statistics, and without trying to go into politics too much, obesity rates in Scotland are much higher than those European countries that you just mentioned. Even stuff like playing outdoors, that culture is being evaporating in Scottish, British society, whereas if you go to the streets of Spain, Belgium, Netherlands, they're all out playing outside to 10 p.m. at night. So we've got a culture which is very inclusive. We don't have children just going to the local park with a football and playing with each other because they're too busy playing with the PlayStation. That's just the culture that we live in. Would having more facilities help with that? Maybe, but I think it's a very simplified answer.
James, some of the young people that are out 10 o'clock at night, they're just maybe not doing anything legal.
Yeah, yeah.
Another
I can
cultural
actually,
problem.
I can remember watching. I think it was last year. Aston Villa had kind of the wee sort of get to know your players sort of videos. So one of the questions to all the players were, "What do you like to have for a snack? What do you like to eat? The favourite meal?" And you go through all the players, and you can see obviously the Spanish players were saying like bruschetta or this or can pasta with this and this, and then you're going through, and it got to John McGinn, chips. and that does come to a cultural thing. It's not just cultural though. It breaks down to simple genetics.
Hello, Gordon Strachan. How are you doing?
Gordon Strachan was one for saying that we are just smaller. We're smaller than all the other countries, and I can vouch for that to a degree. Even though I'm sort of 6'3", I went to Belgium for a stag do, and when I walk into a pub in Scotland, back when you could walk into pubs, I was probably one of the tallest in the room, or within the 2 or 3 tallest in the room. I went into a pub in Belgium and I was looking up at everybody. They're just all giants. It's just I could never understand the sort of genetic thing, but even if you look at the midfield for Scotland, I don't think any of them's over 5'10", 5'11". That can the better players.
Just need 11 Ollie McBurneys.
Oh God. No, what we need?
Yeah,
we need Jock Fox. More Jock Fox.
He shouldn't be in the team. I find the issue is women fancying shorter people than taller people. It's got to be that. They're just sleeping with shorter people more than sleeping with taller people, and they're not actually getting a chance to produce, which I'm trying to help with.
I was about to say, what's your excuse?
We're talking about horse racing another week.
I don't really have much knowledge
what's everybody else's views on the sort of the youth? How do you think Scotland are doing youth-wise compared to other countries?
I think that's something that needs to be kind of integrated from a school level, and it needs to be like the environment where schools are then looking on to getting sponsorship from colleges and universities, and then continuing that, just like they do in America. I know, like in American football, they would literally play at high school level, then colleges will actually come and recruit them, give them sponsorships to go and play for their colleges, and then that's how the players into the NFL teams get recruited through colleges. I think that's the kind of system that Scotland needs to kind of integrate for a sport that they love so much, football, and kind of get those younger players into school level and get those kind of school facilities better, where you've got proper coaches coaching football, you've got proper like school matches happening between schools and things like that. Because in Grange, when we were in Grangemouth, there was never really any
many tournaments.
matches. Yeah, exactly. And for players like me, we'd never even got a chance. You know what I mean? And that you're never going to improve. You're never going to improve a youth development when you won't give your worst players a chance. You got to take everyone collectively.
I think you can agree with your worst players to an extent, not sort of as bad as Shahan, but you look at players like Vardy.
Ollie McBurney.
Obviously, it was good enough to get into sort of your Fleetwoods, but he was a late developer within football. Who else? Ricky Lambert was the same.
Shane Duffy's yet to flourish.
God's sake.
Duffy. And I just think that we're very elitist at youth level in kids football. I mean, I've had scouts coming over to meet. He asked me for the the name. Well, I hope they were scouts, asking for the names of the 5-year-old football players, so that he can sort of scout them for the Hearts and St Johnstone and whoever it was at that time. But Ken, they're picking out the best players at 5, working with them, and then they'll fall away, and best players will come in, work with them. I mean, is that the best system to go with? Is there a different way to do it?
What I was going to say was Hearts could maybe do a couple of 5-year-olds. That would maybe actually benefit them.
I just think that, like, kind of giving them exposure to, like, clubs like Hearts and things like that sometimes maybe doesn't give the best results at the end. I know there's better training methods and things like that. I think they got to do all this stuff, but through schools and that gives them a kind of forward way of staying in school and in colleges and things like that.
And the socialist speaks again.
So Shahan, nobody's taking responsibility for this except the schools. Is that what you're saying? In your dream world, nobody's taking responsibility for this.
No, I'm not saying that. It needs to be the government. It needs to be a full system rechange. I'm not saying that schools are the only ones responsible. I'm just thinking those things should be integrated more within schools rather than clubs like Hearts and Rangers and Celtic and.
Shahan, you are acting like a typical socialist. You think of a problem.
You're acting like a typical Tory.
The state solves it. I'm going to put Ronald Reagan to you quickly. The worst 7 words you can hear is "there's a problem and I'm here from the government to help." Just don't. Schools are not the answer. Schools are not the answer for this. It is a better integration between the SFA and clubs and a pooling of resources rather than competition. If you have
it is competition, isn't it? It's competition, isn't it?
No, but
right now it's a competition.
I can't believe I'm going to say that.
Having 6-year-olds playing, saying, "Oh, you have to win. You have to win." It should be go out there, enjoy the game, and express yourself.
No,
that's what they do in Spain. That's what they do in Belgium. That's what they do in Italy. And they have technical players rather than players who just boot the ball.
That's what still happens here right now, though. They still they still want people to win. It would happen in school or it's happening right now.
Shahan, to jump on your school point,
not what I'm calling for. I'm calling for
Shahan, to jump on your school point and saying should be in schools and that's how they get scholarships and that. In America, that works because the American school system works on an average of and you have to keep above an average the entire year. In the UK, it's you have to pass this class. Yes, it could only be like a 40%, but you have to pass it. And then it's still a case of if that doesn't work, you then still have to take those skills and go back out. Because it's not like in America where you can sit around in free agency in the NFL, or go to the XFL or the CFL or.
I completely agree with that, and I'm not saying that it just needs to stop at the level that it's at right now and jump into schools and things like that. And I know that the clubs and the sports teams and stuff right now have more resources. SFA has more resources. What I'm saying is those two organisations need to integrate together and move that into maybe a school system where the schools are progressing those children. I
want to jump on this quickly because Shahan's got a couple of points that are actually in motion already. So there's been a couple of systems that they've had through the well. We had a terrible system, and then Bertie Vogts came in. Bertie Vogts was a terrible manager for Scotland, but he brought in a guy with him. I cannot remember his name now, but he completely changed the SFA system from youth right up. So he changed the system. Then there was Craig Levine. When he came in, they changed the system again with Scotland, and they have a school system. And if you look at the under 21s teams, it'll say beside their name the players that are involved within the school system. It is a semi-scholarship system. There is Graham High is one of them. Foresters in Edinburgh's one, where they do have players who get extra football stuff from SFA coaches as part of their curriculum, but it isn't a full thing. That's just one of it's like one of their free subjects and one of the things they can add in sort of fourth year, so they're not doing anything else. It is something that's emotional new, but now they've moved on again to Project Brave. So I'm not actually sure if the school system's still going, but when you look at the under-21 Scottish national team, they do say SS, which is the school system that they're going to. The other thing that I want to say with Shahan, I don't think, because I would assume Shahan's talking more about the primary school sort of side and getting them to sort of get in, or are you talking about a high school side?
Well, primary school into high school, then high school into colleges, universities, and then into bigger teams.
What I would say would be the answer for it would be the SYFA speaking to club teams and having people from the club teams go into schools and taking a training session once in a while, and having as part of their PE system, which they have already, so not adding to it, but letting the kids get a feel for what structural team football is. Because I played with a lot of really good players that didn't actually go into proper teams because they were out watching Hibs at the Saturday, or the parents couldn't afford it, so they never actually got involved in playing football. The only football they were playing was out the concrete, kicking the ball against the wall with us. So there is points to Shahan's thing, but basically disagree with it mostly.
Yeah. Martin, I want to jump in your 1 point there, if I can. Like you're saying, I think everyone's going on about SYFA, SFA. It's all football. So yeah, you have a football coach come into a football training session. Okay, I'm a hockey player. Does that mean you have to get SHU involved as well? And then SRU,
I do
and then
think so.
STT?
I think that the SRU is something because Greensmouth rugby team, they used to have a guy that would go into all the primary schools and try to recruit players. I do think
I heard that I was recruited as well through that.
All sports should be doing that at primary school level, so that the kids actually have a chance and an opportunity, whether it's after school clubs or during school, to just have somebody to go in, somebody paid to go in and teach the kids a new sport. Because the way it is just now,
I definitely agree.
I mean, even you look at tennis, Andy Murray had to go to Barcelona to learn how to play tennis properly, get to the level he's at. And a lot of the sports are getting missed out at basic primary school level. I mean, you're not getting cricket. Cricket doesn't get taught, does it, Shahan?
I got recruited for the
It
cricket
generally
team.
doesn't.
I got recruited for a cricket team.
If anybody ever wants to talk about cricket, it ends up being a game of rounders at PE time. That's it.
So now we're talking about schools. I'm going to jump in if that's all right.
No, you can wait your turn.
And that's all the time we have.
So, Martin, what you're suggesting is a great idea. Do you know? Let's get all these different sports in.
Yes.
At the school I used to work in, we had a boy come along from SRU, and it was maybe a 3-4 week block, and he would come in and work with some of the young people. The issue is, and the whole point of PE in primary school is obviously to increase fitness, make young people aware of how health and fitness impacts their lives and everything, but introducing them to a variety of sports. And there's no way you're going to introduce every child in every school to every sport. It's not going to happen.
Why can't it? That's what I'm saying. Like, this is where we need to improve that kind of bonding between the sports. That's
I would
my
say
point.
that you look at it's going to be local areas, so nobody's going to travel 30 miles to the new thing. So you look at the area that we're at the new. What sort of what's local to us? We've got the cycling place. We've got the running place. We've got rugby, plenty of football teams. Okay. Outside that, we've got Sea Cadets. Is it hockey?
I'm playing for Falkirk.
Martin, schools are under so much pressure just now, and well, not just now. Schools are under so much pressure anyway, trying to engage young people and trying to do different bits and bobs, academical, non-academical, to then try and push sport on them as well.
A good thing there's a no vote confidence coming up.
Yeah. Bruce, I'll go with that, because I think me and Shahan are probably the two more, and James are the most recent. out of high school, saying that was a good few years ago. And definitely, it felt like when you're in high school, like it felt like, especially like in the first year, when you're at the start of high school, you can kind of get away, like teachers get away with going, we're going to try this sport, we're going to play this, because your first and second year, you've not really built up rapport, they're still just trying to introduce you things. Once you've been there for 3-4 years, most people start getting on with at least one PE teacher. And what I found, like the PE teachers seem to be some of the best, seem to be some of the closest to the students, and they'd have a laugh with them and that, and it started becoming.
Was that an old guy or a hot lassie?
The latter.
We never actually had. I was gonna say we didn't actually have any old PE teachers.
We didn't actually have any old PE teachers.
This conversation's just went full loop, because we've went, there's not enough specialisation, and now we've went, there's not enough diversification. So we're sitting on the fence. So I think Shahan should be happy with the situation.
I think, okay, to counteract to say James' point now.
I've done anything but sat on fence tonight.
Oh, you've sat on it as always. But yeah, I think the way is it's too. I think to round it up, to steal Martin's piece here. Sorry, Martin, but I think to round it up, from my experience, if you want to get into football or any sport at a youth level, all of them are quite elitist. Like, you do have to spend a lot of money. Like playing hockey, yes. I know you're like, for a 13, 14, like, so I say a 10, 11-year-old who's kind of last couple of years before they move to the adult game, they're going to be buying it. They're buying a stick, and for a decent hockey stick, you're talking maybe 100 quid, which isn't a lot. But then you've got to include hockey shoes, so you've got the right protection and grip, your proper hockey shin pads as well, and then along with all your other fees. And I know
Gum shield, everything.
I know from experience that, well, with my sticks, I'm paying like 200 quid for my sticks, and they're about. I think my most expensive one's 37 inches, and it's just pink. Oh wait,
is it the head? Is it the head or is it the legs of the head?
It's like full 37-inch pink stick.
Pink, interesting.
Wait a minute. I'm not going to ask about your pink stick. I don't think it's the right place.
But then, like, obviously I played table tennis as well. I know with table tennis, if you want to get into it, like the local club, right, that me and James and Shahan played with for a little time, it was cheap. It was £1 a night, and if you wanted to play a league, it was 50 quid, and that done you for a season. But then to buy a decent bat, you're talking 60, 70 quid on top of that. And then if you want to get into with all
table tennis.
Yep, you'll be surprised how specific rubbers can be.
You sell them at the pound shop.
Martin,
you're getting ripped off.
Martin, something you're unfamiliar with. You actually need proper special rubbers to play.
See, that was my issue. I went cheap. And it didn't work out very well at all.
Well,
you literally just got a bat with no rubber on it.
I'm pretty sure Forrest Gump didn't have a 50 quid bat.
But then you look at that, and then, like, okay, that's cheap to get into. But if you want to get into, like, some of the Scotland setups and that, I know guys who pay 300 quid just to be allowed into a session with one of the Scotland coaches, and you're like, this guy's ranked in Scotland, he's playing in tournaments, and you're making him pay 300 quid to have a training lesson with 500 with 30 other people. It's like, it doesn't make much sense. But it's the same in all sports, I imagine. But it's like, you're putting all these monetary barriers in. It's like, if someone's just naturally talented, you need to give them the chance for it.
It's weird with it though, because the government thing sort of comes into it, where one of the guy that I work with used to play for, I don't know if it's Scotland A team or Scotland B team at 8-ball pool, and he plays billiards quite a lot in all the tournaments. The Indians would come over here and get paid by the government to play over here, whereas we have to pay for it ourselves. So the government's got to start paying for it.
Yeah, I definitely know. I think final one. Like, if you look at Scotland and compare it to England, the amount of money the English government puts into into
Whoa,
grassroots
whoa, whoa,
stuff.
whoa. British government.
British government.
No, Mitchell, you were
no.
right.
It's English. It's England hockey and such like that. So that's what I'm going
But
with
it's a
this.
British government that pays for it.
British government specifically looking at England put in more money than the Scottish government do, and that is pretty damning. I know that from hockey experience.
Maybe that's the fault of British government that they're not producing or giving enough money to smaller countries, isn't it?
Without going into politics, there's 2-point-something billion the Scottish
because we
government
don't go into politics in this.
Yeah, but no, we can't make Scottish-English comparisons which don't benefit Scotland. There is a nationalist or two here. We can't make these comparisons.
But generally, I know. I was reading recently. It must have been back end of the first lockdown last year. A team down near Norwich for hockey got a £20 million grant so they could go build like their own hockey like a couple water-based hockey pitches, which are fantastic. There's only a couple I know of in Scotland, and they're not great. And I know my club are looking to try and build stuff, but it's just trying to find the funds and a place to build. It's just nigh on impossible now.
I think we spent a lot of time talking about youth development, Norwich, English stuff. So, Bruce, do you think Norwich will win the English Championship?
Do you know, James, that's probably the best link you've made in the last 3 podcasts.
There you go.
Well, the last three, just 3.
And you can tell that was not pre-prepared because I had no clue Mitchell was going to talk about Norwich there.
I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt here. Okay. So,
nice.
Wee bits of facts and figures. So, Championship, there's 11 points between the top 4 teams, 13 games left to play. Norwich sit at the top with 70 points. Yes, I think Norwich will be promoted. And what I want to ask everybody quickly is who do we think is going to be promoted? We'll go around first. And then after that, I want to know your teams that will be in the playoffs. So, James, who do you think is going to be automatically promoted?
Norwich and Swansea.
Mitchell.
Got Norwich and Brentford.
Martin.
Sheffield Wednesday and Norwich and Brentford.
Jahan.
Norwich and Brentford.
Can you tell which one of us have just looked at the table?
Nobody took into account that Swansea have 2 games in hand, no?
Yeah, no, Swansea do have 2 games in hand. That's where the 11-point gap is. So they would bring it down to 5 if they win both games. But even still, it's who's going to take the playoffs, James?
Brentford, Bournemouth, Cardiff, and Reading.
Mitchell.
Watford, Swansea, Bournemouth, Cardiff.
Martin.
I fancy Barnsley, Swansea, Watford, and Bournemouth.
Shahan.
Same as any of them. Sure.
Someone didn't do his research.
I don't know. So, what does it mean by playoffs?
The top, the third to sixth. The third to sixth are going to the playoffs.
They're going to playoffs, right? So I will tell you that. 3rd to 6th. Watford, Swansea, Reading, and Bournemouth. That would be the order.
Yes, exactly how it's sitting right now.
And Bruce.
Yeah, I have it. Swansea, Watford, Bournemouth, Reading, because I know that Bournemouth are in the Championship, because I know these things.
You just know these things.
Well, that wraps up this week's episode. And if anyone says you don't learn anything in this podcast, you do. Bruce has learned that Bournemouth are in the Championship. So thanks for tuning in this week. Please do comment, like on Facebook, follow on Twitter, and everything else you're supposed to do on social media, which I've just forgotten to take notes on. But yes, thank you for watching.
Professional.
And
Professional.
It's a sports podcast.